everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to do a triangle color mixing exercise using 3 secondary colors, specifically secondary fluorescent colors. Now, this video is absolutely an example of when I'm filming part of a different video and think, ooh, this would be a really fun idea. I should ask people if they want to see it. Never mind, I'm gonna do it right now. I am currently steam setting the colors from a Triad color mixing using the fluorescent or equivalent primaries of fluorescent fuchsia, fluorescent lemon, and frozen. And the results gave a gorgeous balance of bright rainbow colors, plus 3 very muted colors in the middle that didn't really connect. And I was lamenting, oh, those 3 colors don't really fit in a set very well on their own. But what if we start with our green, purple, and orange? So radioactive, purple pop, and fluorescent safety orange. Maybe those mixtures will give us more muted tones, which I can combine with the muted tones from the other triangle. I don't know if they'll result in muted tones, but they could. And so let's give this a shot. And especially since I still have all the other yarn samples on hand, we can compare the 2 triangles at the end. So I'm really, really excited about this. And if you're excited too, double check that you're subscribed and ring that bell, turn on notifications so you never miss a new video upload. I made some stock solutions of purple pop, radioactive, and fluorescent safety orange about a week ago. All of these are at a 1% strength, which means we have 1 gram of dye dissolved in 100 milliliters of water. Oftentimes for color mixing, I might make things fresh so that way the stocks are as accurate as possible. But since these were done recently and I have them, and with these neon dyes, a little goes a really long way, we're gonna use these. I originally intended to dye this on the exact same base that I used in the previous video, Wool to Dye For's Platinum Sock. And unfortunately, I don't have enough platinum sock in order to do that. So I am revising my plan of it to dye this yarn on Wool to Dye For's Titanium Sock, which is also 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. It's just 2-ply versus 4-ply. They have the same yardage. In theory, they could still be mixed together, but I will keep the sets separate, and if I feel like I can't put together a good set from either one, I can dye up more colors on the correct base to help make full sets, or just have some smaller than 100 gram sets. Here is our setup for today. We are going to dye 20 gram mini skeins of Wool to Dye For's Titanium Sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. And I have that pre-soaking off camera right now. I want to dye all of the yarn at a 0.5% depth of shade, which means that there's an equivalent of 0.5 grams of dye per 100 grams of yarn. And since our dye stocks are all mixed at a 1% strength, this means that we need a total of 10 milliliters of our 1% stock solution for each 20 gram mini skein to get that 1% depth of shade. And so we will use 10 milliliters of each of the 3 colors at the corner and then do various mixtures so we get a lot of different proportions. So for example, with the purple pop, we will add 10 milliliters in this first cup, then 7.5 milliliters, 5 milliliters, and then 2.5 milliliters. And we'll use a similar pattern for each of the other colors so we get all of these different proportions of the mixtures. I set up my 16 ounce takeout containers, and I added 1 cup of plain tap water to each one. And then using graduated syringes, I added the dyes to the cups like I described from the previous clip, making sure there's a total of 10 milliliters of dye in each cup, and making sure to stir things up. I'm not entirely sure what the colors are going to really look like yet, but with these secondary colors, I mean, purple pop is extraordinarily pink. Radioactive is extraordinarily yellow, and fluorescent safety orange is, well, I think pink and yellow, the 2 fluorescent molecules that are in the other 2. And looking at this now, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot of orange. A lot of orange leaning things, just because this green which, you know, we have in our yellow position, is very, very yellow to begin with. And we don't really have anything here from these three starting colors that has a strong blue presence. There is some blue over here, but yet, see, even that's looking, it's a more muted orange, but it's looking orange because the pink and yellow are so dominant that, yeah, we're gonna have, how many different kinds of burnt orange can we get? But I'm actually surprised because like these colors are, ooh, that's really pretty. Yeah, so it's not that, you know, I'm like, oh, all the colors we're gonna get. Is that just, that's a golden yellow. That's amazing. I wouldn't have predicted that. I mean, that's the thing with this. What? Like, I wouldn't have predicted the way that these colors would come out. And so it's just exciting to see where we are. I am curious to see which one of these colors is the most dominant. And it's possible it's going to be the orange. I honestly didn't know which one might dominate everything. I knew it probably wouldn't be the green because the green just never tends to be potent enough. It often seems to disappear. Ooh, it could just be the pinks in both the orange and the purple pop. But the question will be, how do these colors all lean? And my guess is, and they are very, very orange. Okay, let's pop all of these in. A lot of these colors will likely break here. And by break, I mean we will see a separation of some of the blue pigments and some of the pink pigments. A lot of the blues in these, especially radioactive and purple pop, tend to strike really, really quickly. And so, yeah, it just means that we need to be aware of that, and we might see some really fun variation in here. So this color, which I'm surprised I'm so excited by it right now, it's reminding me a little bit of Aztec gold. This is like a more orangey brown color. There's a lot more variation in between these than I may have expected. There's sometimes when I've done this where a lot of the oranges just feel so close together that it would be hard to distinguish them. And granted, there's a lot of very subtle things happening here, like a lot of extraordinarily subtle things happening over here. So these two samples look remarkably similar. Maybe because they have, I don't know if these two have a similar amount of yellow in them, but those two, yeah, look quite similar to me. I mean, I would say that our strongest color is potentially the Fluorescent Safety Orange. The purple pop absolutely does have some influence. Like these two feel a little bit pinker in the way the oranges are going, but there's no question that the green is a minor player here. Part of my hypothesis was correct. We do have 12 muted colors, and I think what'll be fun is that there's many different ways that I could separate these into various sets. And so I am extraordinarily excited about that. And I think of all these colors, our Fluorescent Safety Orange sort of blends in with these a little bit closely, and these two just stand out. Not quite like a sore thumb, but like a little bit of a surprise. I mean, I think that as far as sets go, this is a very interesting fall-inspired thing. So maybe actually this pink, it has a much more dramatic shift than the others. But yeah, I am just very intrigued and excited by these colors. The green certainly could have held its own less in here, let me say that. Now I'm adding a tablespoon of white vinegar to each of these. If I was not using fluorescent colors, then maybe I would go with 1 teaspoon. This is a high ratio of vinegar, but these fluorescent colors can take a lot more time for the colors to absorb. And we are going to start with a cold process approach, where I'm going to set these aside for 2 days or so to allow the color time to slowly bind onto the yarn. And really, it's just a way to help process multiple samples. And I will go through and gently stir everything up. Yeah, but then in a couple days, once the color has absorbed, then we can go and steam set to actually completely set the color. And we can then fit just more different colors in at a time. I will need to think about how I am going to divide these up, so that way we will be able to tell which one goes where for the end. But I am really intrigued by these colors. Now, do we have anything that feels brown? It's hard to say. There's certainly some things that lean a little bit more brown than others, but like this one here might feel a little bit brown. Everything is definitely muted for sure. But as far as how brown they are, we'll have to wait until we see them dry. But if you think about it, what is brown except a more muddy version of a lot of other colors? And there are browns that lean red, there are browns that lean purple, there are browns that lean yellow. I don't think there's really any browns that lean blue, but there are some cool toned browns. So you never know. And certainly everything here is very warm toned. That we can say for sure. But anyway, I am gonna go pop lids on these and store them in a 5-gallon bucket. And we'll be back in a couple days to look at the samples. We had a little bit of each of our 3 colors left at the tips of our graduated syringes and just along the bottom rim of the cups. And well, we don't want to leave any dye behind. And so I added all of this dye into a stainless steel pot with a random amount of water, and then brought over a skein of bare knit pick stroll fingering weight yarn to dye this. Now, as this is a pastel combination of the 3 colors, we're probably going to get something really, really muddy and broken. It'll probably be like an orange and green kind of combo thing that I may not be a fan of. But I needed to do this for science, for artistry, because I did this in the other video, and I'm curious what the midpoint of these secondary colors would look like and how that compares to when we did this with the yellow, blue, and pink. Surprisingly, the color was a lovely peach. I really actually like this color. After everything was nice and mixed up, I added some white vinegar and went and heat set this on the stove for 30 minutes and washed it off camera. And we will also take a look at this at the end of the video. It's been a few days, and now I'm gonna remove the lids so we can take a look at our mostly orange, muted orange yarn. And here we go. There are more differences between this combination than I thought there might be. I mean, I guess these 3 feel remarkably similar, but I feel differences in some of the other areas. And I imagine that some of these differences may be even a little more apparent once they are dry. But let's see how we did. Okay, we've got a hint of some pink in there. Okay, that one's not so bad. There's definitely breaking going on. I already peeked at that little sample, but I can tell you that in here we've got some yellow tones and some more golden tones from where the colors separated. But overall, this works pretty well. Now, in some other samples I've done, I have observed transfer from some of these colors when steam setting. So that is something that I definitely do want to keep in mind. And I figure out how I want to do this so that way I can tell everything apart. All right, I think I'm gonna go steam set our neons separately. I'm gonna steam set that for 30 minutes. All right, and then I think if I group the rest in 4 groups of 3, we should be able to distinguish between them, because the 3 in the center are the most similar. With the exception, these colors together are so pretty. Just sort of checking here to make sure they are all substantially different, so I'll be able to tell where they go, because some of those are a little bit similar. Okay, but I think that we have the brightest orange on the outside, and these three, none of them is more yellow. So hopefully we'll be able to put everything back where it goes. But anyway, I'm gonna put zip ties to group those 4 groups of 3, and then we will steam set them. I'm gonna steam set everything for 30 minutes, and then we will let them cool completely so we can wash it. Once the yarn had completely cooled off, I washed all 15 mini skeins together in some cool tap water using a little bit of dish soap. If I had started to see some colors bleed at this stage, then maybe I would have separated them into smaller batches. But the biggest time I was concerned about transfer was during the steaming situation. Most of the time I don't get color transfer after a cold process and then steaming, except for when I used yak and silk with some of these neon fluorescent colors. And I think I had just finished filming that video around the time I was doing this one, and so therefore I was a little bit nervous that I would end up getting transfer between the neons here as well. Thankfully, since I had things somewhat physically separated in the steamer basket, there was no color transfer, and we also had no bleeding as we washed the yarn. I rinsed out the soap, put the yarn through my Nina Soft spin dryer, and then hung it up to dry so we could take a closer look at the colors that we mixed. We have our 3 neon secondary colors that are the pre-mixed secondary colors. And well, let's see the range of colors we created when we mixed them together. When playing with mixing these secondary colors, it should be no surprise that everything that we mixed is muted. I mean, if you think about if you were to mix purple with yellow or blue with orange, you would start to get something in the more brown family, depending on the proportions. But we have all of these mixtures are very much more in a red, orange, golden, yellow type family because our colors are all very, very heavy in pink and yellow. The orange and green are likely mostly fluorescent lemon, and the purple pop is probably mostly fluorescent fuchsia. And there's a little bit of blue pop in there and a little bit of the pink in our fluorescent safety orange at the top. And so those elements are giving us all of these beautiful fall tones that we have mixed in. I would say of the colors, the pink, probably from the purple pop, is the most dominant. These colors in this row are all a little bit brighter, even if with our golden yellow, than the rest. And if you look at colors on the diagonal, here, this one is definitely more yellow, that's more orange. But once we get into the realm where half of it is the purple pop or more, these 3 colors are very similar, as are those 2. And suddenly the impact of whether we have a little bit more blue or a little bit more pink in there isn't making as big of a difference. When it comes to making sets out of this, I'm not entirely sure how I would go about that, except to say that I probably would take our 3 secondary, our primaries for the purposes of this video. I would take the radioactive, the safety orange, and the purple pop, and probably combine those with some of the actual more primary neon colors that I use in a set, and then divide up these fall tones into 2 sets of 6, because I think the muted tones work super well together. And with the exception of maybe this line right here of 5, it's hard to picture our 3 neons in with the rest of those colors. Let's compare the triangle with our secondaries to the triangle with our primaries, because when we combined all the primaries, once we started mixing them together, we had 3 muted colors in the center of the triangle. Whereas when we started with secondary colors and blended those together, everything ended up being more muted. And so my original intention was to take these three colors and combine them into sets with colors from this set. Unfortunately, I didn't have the same exact base, but what I will probably do is dye two colors from this set to combine with that set on that base, and then probably dye some other brights to go with these three colors. And I think that that would work out really, really well. But ultimately, the reason why I am sharing both of these side by side is not just to show you get more muted things when you start with secondaries. But if you look at our triangle where we started with primaries, we have something that's close to a purple pop, close to a fluorescent safety orange, and close to a radioactive. So in theory, all of these colors that we have right here, we could have mixed from frozen, fluorescent lemon, and fluorescent fuchsia. Which means that we have maybe not quite 30 colors here, maybe it's more like 27 colors that were mixed from the equivalent of 3. And so I'm showing this so that way you know you don't need to own all of the pre-mixed colors that are out there. Now, the fluorescent pre-mixed colors from Dharma are a ton of fun and I recommend them, but you can create neons with just the three more primary colors. And so therefore you don't need to have all of them if you want to create something neon. And well, I think that's fun because let me tell you, fluorescent fuchsia, a little bit goes a really, really, really long way. And so you may not need a lot of it, even if you're dyeing a lot with it. One other little comparison, in each of the cases I had a little bit of dye left, whether it was the yellow, pink, and blue or the orange, purple, and green. And I combined that to create a tonal. And I don't know if there was maybe just less dye, but the color that I got when we were starting with the secondaries is brighter than the color I got when we were starting with the primaries. And so I don't know what to make of that, but it's interesting. This is a really beautiful, neutral peach kind of color. It's very, very, very pale, but it's really nice. It's just funny that something so neutral came from 3 very, very bright colors. Now I'm gonna go twist up these skeins, and once I do, I think it's gonna be really, really hard to put them back together in the triangle form because some of these colors are so unbelievably similar when you compare them to one another. Don't get me wrong, I love pre-mixed colors. I love playing with these bright and vibrant hues, but I don't think I will ever tire of seeing the range we can get with color mixing. The range that we have in these autumn tones is beautiful. I may be a little more partial to brights myself, but I still think I can create some really fun sets here. Don't get me wrong, all 12 of them look really great together, but this is a fun way to create 2 sets of 6. And then as for our brights, the neon orange would work, I think, the best, and maybe the green in with some of these colors. The purple pop stands out a fair amount. And so, again, I think I'll complete that bright set of its own. There's not really space in my closet, and it's very echoey, but we have to know, do they glow? Okay, let's turn on the light. And let's see, so yes, they glow. Between our 3 neons, the purple pop glows, but the pink is the lightest, the yellow is what's bright. And you can see the brightest is probably the radioactive, followed by the fluorescent safety orange. And of these colors, the ones that seem to have more yellow glow the most. Even the more brown tones do glow a little bit. Do I have something that doesn't glow at all? Let me grab something that doesn't glow. Okay, here's some blue knit crepe yarn. And there, you can see that this knit crepe yarn isn't glowing. I mean, it looks a little blue under the blue light, but you're not seeing the brightness that we're seeing in the yarn that we dyed. And so even our more muted colors do glow. Certainly not as bright as our primaries. None of them are as bright as they were before they were combined, but there is still a glow to them. Even if I have the black light on with the overhead light, you know, you can see the shift and the brightness from the fluorescence. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was a natural sequel to mixing 3 primary neon colors, and I'm thrilled with the results. Please double check you're subscribed, turn on notifications, and if you love the yarn I dye, go and check out the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. Not only is my shop filled with hundreds of skeins of yarn and some sets that are featured in these videos, you can also sign up to become a lab partner and get shoutouts in a video, and that's a lot of fun as well. You can find a link to the shop down in the video description. Thank you so much for watching.